السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. Today, brothers and sisters, inshallah, we'll continue on where we left off in our lesson series on the Fiqh of Tahara. And when we began speaking about Tahara, we broke it down into a few categories, and last week we spoke about we broke it down into a few segments, and last week we spoke about the one who is performing the Tahara and some issues to do with him. And that was al-mutatahhir, is what we spoke about. So the one performing Tahara, and we mentioned that it's فهو المكلف الخالي عن مانع الحسي والشرعي. So that's someone that is a mukallaf. There is someone who is accountable to the Sharia and all of the several factors that affect that. We don't want to go over it again. And they do not have any preventative factors, whether they are physical or shari'i, any of those impediments. So now, inshallah, we'll start off talking about what is being used for Tahara in and of itself. So we're going to be speaking about the substance that is used for Tahara, and then afterwards, the next segment would be the actual Tahara in and of itself, and then afterwards, what nullifies the Tahara. So those are the four categories we'll be speaking about, inshallah. So to begin today, the substance that is used to make Tahara. There is two substances that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated for His servants when they are making Tahara to use. Anybody know what those two substances are? Al-ma, water, and earth. Jazakallahu khairan. And these two substances, they are the two that I was looking for. So that is water, first and foremost, used for wudu and ghusl, and cleaning najasa. And when it's not available, the second substance can be used, which the brother mentioned, is earth or soil. Okay? And also, is the absence of water being available the only reason why somebody would use soil? There's two reasons why water would be, or rather why soil would be used for Tahara as opposed to water. Number one is the absence of water. Okay, there's no water available. That's very straightforward. Number two, anybody know a second reason why one may make Tahara with soil? Na'am akhi?
If it has like a physical effect upon him, like maybe if it's too cold, he might catch hypothermia or...
So if there's a darar that will occur from using it. So if there's a darar that will occur, a harm that will come about from using the water. Okay? So if water will cause harm or injury to that individual. So then to begin with water. Okay, so from the substances being used to perform the Tahara, we will start talking about water. So the fuqaha, they divide water into a few different categories. For some it may feel a little bit, there might be extra explanation there that they never really considered in the past, but inshallah we'll go through it, we'll break it down, we'll make it easy to understand bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So number one, al-ma' al-tahur, purified water. So this is, or rather, al-ma' al-tahur is what is used for making wudu rather, and then from the categories of water moving forward are, so al-tahir, ghayr mutahhir. So some fuqaha, they divided water into three categories, some only into two, and we'll see why in a moment. So looking at the three different categories that the fuqaha divided them into, number one being al-tahir, al-ma' al-tahir, ghayr mutahhir. That's water that is pure, but it does not purify. Okay, water that is pure, it is pure in and of itself, but it cannot be used for purification. And that's because one of its three qualities have changed. So the three qualities, according to ijma' al-ulama, which affect water are what? What are the three qualities that cause the water to be changed from its original? No. Smell, taste, and color. Jazakallahu khairan. So, al-tahir ghayr mutahhir is water that one or more of its three qualities have been altered. Okay? And an example of that is if you put coffee in water, put ground coffee beans with water, what happens? What does that water turn into?
Coffee.
Turns into coffee. How about if you put some tea bags and you pour some water over it? That becomes tea. Okay? And so on. So, water that's combined with another liquid or substance that changes its color, smell, or taste, but it's still considered pure. This, you cannot use it for Tahara, okay? And it's pretty straightforward and clear. You cannot use it for Tahara. And just so it's very easy to understand, can you just unplug that mic and turn that one off, please? Just so it's easier to understand. So, technically speaking, this category, Tahir Ghayr Mutahhir, is not, we don't even refer to it as water in our everyday language. We wouldn't call coffee water with coffee, and it would just call it coffee. Or tea, we wouldn't call tea water with tea bags in it, we would call it tea. So in reality, this segment, that's why some ulama, they didn't really even consider this to be one of the two segments, or the breakdowns of the types of water, because it is not really water in and of itself. It is not really considered to be water. Okay, so that's number one. So it's not referred to as H2O, it's not referred to as water. However, it does have a water base, but one of its three properties, or more, one or more of its three properties have been changed due to some other pure substance or liquid being added to it. Okay? Now the second type of water, from a fiqh perspective we're talking here, is tahir mutahhir. Okay? Pure water which purifies. So this is very straightforward. This is water in its original form. Okay? With none of its qualities changing. No color change, no change of smell or taste. This water, of course, you're allowed to use it for wudu and ghusl and your tahara. Okay? And this is al-ma' al-tahur, as I just mentioned previously. So, examples of al-ma' al-tahur would be like rainwater. You see rain?
River.
Rain, river, ocean, well water. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, we send down from the heavens purifying water. And وَيُنَزِّلُ عَلَيْكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لِيُطَهِّرَكُم بِهِ. He caused rain or water to descend upon you from the sky to clean you thereby. And also Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said regarding seawater, هُوَ الطَّهُورُ مَاءُ الْحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ. It is water of the sea is purifying, you can use it for purification, and its dead animals are lawful to eat. You know, normally mayta, like a dead animal, you just find the carcass, it's obviously haram, it's najis, you cannot eat it. Except, there's an exception from animals that are from the sea. The mayta of the sea is halal according to this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, and also another example of water, so like I said, well water, such as what's a very famous well? We hope to drink from its water and use its water.
Zamzam.
Zamzam. Jazakallahu khair. Ma Zamzam. Zamzam is blessed water. Okay? So this category of water isn't like the first. So this category of water is just your standard water. All of its qualities and features remain the same and are intact. However, there is an exception made to this category. Okay, there is an exception that the ulama have made. And that's if this water has been mixed with something that is pure, but it's very difficult to be separated from it, and it would still be considered water. Okay? An example of this, and just before I proceed actually, and there is an ijma' on this, so there is a consensus, and we know that consensus is a form of evidence in and of itself. So there is an ijma' that this water though that's pure and none of its qualities have changed for the asl, but it has been mixed with some substance that's very difficult to prevent the mixing, okay, and you still do refer to it as water. So there's an ijma' that this doesn't affect its ability to be used for tahara. And the ijma' was mentioned by Ibn Rushd, Ibn Qudama, and Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahumullah. So what is this exception? What does it mean exactly? If we want to break it down with an example, is that there may be perhaps like a little pond of water and there's some rocks in it, okay? Maybe the rocks, certain type of rocks, they cause the taste of the water to change. Or there's like some grass growing in the pond or something, some greenery that's growing in the pond. It causes the taste or the color or the smell of the water to change a little bit. But if you were to, for example, walk past that pond, you would still refer to the pond as water. You wouldn't call it plant soup or grass soup or something. You'd call it water. It's still a pond, right? Or for example, if leaves were to fall into water, okay? The main point is, and Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah, when he explains these masail, he makes it very easy. He says that it's still being referred to as water. Okay, so this is a distinguishing factor between the fuqaha that divided it into two categories. So whether it's tahir, ghayr mutahhir, or tahir, mutahhir, is whether it's really, so it's just talking about liquids that are water-based, whether they are really called water or not. Okay, so that is the main point there. And also another thing that the ulama said, which we're going to get to in a little bit, is that even if like a little bit of najasa doesn't make the water impure, if not the qualities change. We're going to get to that inshallah in a little bit here. طيب, if I want to quiz you guys, when would, studying this mas'ala here, what is something that is a practical example, okay, of a modern day example of this type of water classification? When would this come in handy? In what situation?
When you're washing a dead body?
When you're washing a dead body, you'd be considering the water to be?
It's based on the hadith of the Prophet who passed away.
Okay.
And we mixed it with one flour.
طيب. So, is it no longer?
No, it is true.
It is still permissible to use. Well, obviously from the hadith, because they used it for the ghusl. Okay, so that comes down to some scholars that talk about like if there's a little bit of soap in water. Okay, so it all just really depends on what you would classify that as. Okay, if there's obviously, you would now classify that as some soap with water in it, then you cannot use it for tahara. But if it's some water with a little bit of soap in it, then inshallah there's nothing wrong with that. We're talking about something else. For example, on Sundays, when the brothers they go to the swimming pool, okay, the water has what in it? What do they put in the water to clean the water, to purify it? Chlorine. They put chlorine in the water. Does that have an effect? Does that change the taste of the water? And the smell?
Yeah.
It sure does. Okay, is that allowed to make tahara with that?
No.
No. Who says no? Anybody say yes? Actually, the ulama, the fuqaha of contemporary times, they said you can use it for tahara, because in this situation they use it for cleaning the water, and even though like they use it for cleaning the water and it does alter one of the three properties of it, but it's still considered to be water. Okay, you wouldn't say you're swimming in chlorine with some water in there. It's still water, swimming pool. Okay, so they compare it to the example given before, like water that had leaves or grass mixed with it. Okay. And that is different from the first category, which would be like coffee. Okay, you wouldn't, so you can see the difference. Is that clear? Everybody's clear? Alhamdulillah. Now, the third category of water is al-ma' najis. Water that is najis, it's impure. And this could be a great amount, okay? And that great amount could mix with impurity. If a great amount of water is mixed with najasa, and one of the qualities of the water is changed, color, taste, or smell, then that entire water becomes najis. Okay? And you cannot use it, okay? So if the najasa comes into contact with water, even if the water is great in amount, but the water is altered in one or more of its three qualities, then it becomes najis, okay? The same applies to a small amount of water if the najasa, the impurity, changes one of its qualities. Ibn al-Mundhir rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that the ulama have ijma', and they have consensus that if something impure falls into a small or great amount of water, and that impurity, the najasa, changes the water's taste, color, and smell, then it is najis. So then that water would all be unusable for wudu or ghusl. However, there is some points of khilaf when it comes to this, and we're going to get into it now. Okay, so there's difference among scholars with regards to the amount of water and what would classify as it becoming najis. Alright? So the Hanafiya, the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, they say that a body of water that is less than 10 by 10 cubits, and it's like a shibr deep. A shibr is like a hand span deep. It is considered a small amount of water. And any najasa that's added to it will make all of that water najis and unusable for tahara. The Shafi'i and the Hanbali madhab, they said that a small body of water is al-qullatayn. Okay, does anybody know what's al-qullatayn? Anybody ever hear about that term before? How much? I used 200 liters? 200? So, al-qullatayn, some they say it's equivalent to like a barrel's measurement. Some they say it's about 230 kilograms of water. Okay, this is what qullatayn is equivalent to approximately. So according to the Hanbali and the Shafi'i madhab, they say if najasa were to enter what's the amount of al-qullatayn or less, then that entire water becomes najis. Okay? And just so you guys understand what we're meaning here, is that let's say there's that qullatayn, let's say there's that body of water the Hanafiya they mentioned, or al-qullatayn like the Shafi'i and Hanbalis mentioned, and a drop of urine falls into it. Would a drop of urine affect the color, taste, or smell?
No.
No, but they say it's najis. They say it becomes najis. Okay? However, the madhab al-Malikiyya, they say a third opinion. And they say there's no there's no specific limit or measurement for the quantity of water which would render it automatically najis if mixed with najasa. So they say that that's not what we measure by, how much water there is, whether it's 10 by 10 handspan deep or qullatayn, and anything that comes into contact with that amount of water is automatically najis. Whatever is above, there's dispute. No. What the Malikiyya say is that if any of the qualities of the water change, okay, then this is what would make it, we would render it to be najis from, okay? So there's obviously, brothers, just for the benefit, obviously there's lots of khilaf in these matters, and each madhab has its dalil, and they have their arguments, and they have their response against other madhab. That's obviously a little bit more advanced way of learning. We're not going to take it at that level just yet, inshallah, maybe in the future, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. But we're going to begin with a more basic, entry-level type of course, inshallah. But inshallah, there will be lots of benefit therein. And there's actually lots of practical benefit, especially in the matters of tahara and salah, because they're two ibadat that have to do with every Muslim on a daily basis, multiple times. Like learning about the fiqh of zakah is very practical as well to those who have money. Learning about the fiqh of siyam is also practical as well to the people who fast during that time of the year. But tahara wa salah is something that's repetitive multiple times on a daily basis. But you just keep the noise down here. Jazakallah khair. So, wallahu a'lam, what seems to be the most correct opinion, or al-qawl al-rajih, would be the opinion that we mentioned, the last one of al-Malikiyah, which say that we would only deem the water to be najis if one of its qualities have changed. So that being said, if a drop of urine were to fall into that barrel of water, can you drink from that water? Can you make wudu from it? Can you make ghusl?
Depends on your method.
It depends on your method. But according to the qawl al-rajih, like according to the Maliki opinion, which inshallah it seems to be the most correct opinion, there's nothing wrong with you using that. Okay, maybe you might feel grossed out, but there's nothing wrong with you using that water. Okay? And this is also the opinion that was held by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, which is his student, and it's also an opinion, one of two opinions of Imam Ahmed. And you'll find in many cases there will be a madhab that has more than one opinion, especially madhab al-Imam Ahmed. You'll find sometimes Imam Ahmed has 2 or 3 different opinions in the same mas'ala, okay? And obviously that comes with acquiring knowledge and further development that he went through in his lifetime, rahimahullah. So according to this opinion, the water is not considered impure unless one of its 3 qualities have changed, regardless of the amount of water. Is that clear, brothers? And despite the dalil that accompanies it, or the arguments that accompany it, it's also, subhanAllah, it makes things a lot easier for the Muslim as well. Because if you were to think otherwise, it would be very difficult here. SubhanAllah, you have a little bit of water, some little bit, 1 drop, like I said, 1 drop. And then we're going to get to what's considered to be najis or not. That's 1 drop of something, which even could be mukhtalif fi, falls into there. But then it would render that water unusable. But like I said, that qawl al-rajih said it does not matter the amount as long as the qualities do not change. And there's also a narration which mentions that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was asked by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu about making wudu from a well that's in Medina Munawwara, that it's called Bi'r Buda'a. And it was a well that they used to throw some filth in there, some trash and some flesh and that kind of filth. They used to throw it in there. Okay? He asked, can we make wudu from that well? He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that water is a means for purification, nothing makes it impure. And this hadith was accepted by Imam Ahmed rahimahullah. So according to the Malikiyah, and what seems to be, like I said, the opinion is the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, one of the opinions of Imam Ahmed rahimahumullah jami'an, then water being great or small has no effect. That's not what we use. And what affects the water being najis versus un-najis is only simply if one of its 3 qualities change. Is that clear, brothers?
Yes.
So this is also another practical way this comes into place is, for example, there could be like a very small speck of najasa in our common day toilet that's used by people. Okay, 1 tiny little speck. Okay, let's say they were using the washroom and they're making istinja, they're cleaning themselves, and let's say some of the water splashes onto them. Now, is that water najis that splashed onto them? So they have to clean themselves again from that water? This is another practical example in which it comes into place. If you follow the first opinions, then yes, without a doubt, it's all najis, you have to clean. But if that tiny little speck has no effect on the qualities of that water, then the water would be tahir and there's no issues there. Okay? Moving forward, is the aniyah or the vase or the container that's used for the wudu. So I know in our day and age, we normally make wudu from taps and a sink. However, it's good to learn all these masail because sometimes we can use them. First of all, it's good for the manfa'ah, for the benefit of the knowledge, but you can also use it to make qiyas for new matters that may arise. Okay? So, are we allowed to use gold and silver containers to make wudu? Because we know that there's hadith that it prohibits. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says in Bukhari and Muslim that he said, what the meaning of the hadith can be, the portion that we want, do not drink from gold and silver vessels and do not eat from gold and silver dishes. Say the hadith is sahih. So, can we make wudu from gold or silver vessels or containers?
We're not drinking it, so we should, right?
It must be tahir. Anyone else?
He specifically said to eat or drink.
Okay. So, anyone else have a different opinion? We have Zahiriya in the house. Anyone have a different opinion?
No, it's not heavy. I'm just saying that it's there.
Okay, so the majority of the fuqaha, or to reiterate, the four madhahib, al-mashhura, the madhab of Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmad, rahimahumullah, all four of those madhahib, they say that it is not permissible for one to use a gold or silver vessel for wudu. Okay? So you guys just khalaftu those four madhahib. Okay? And they say because just like you cannot use it for eating and drinking, likewise you cannot use it for wudu. And their explanation is that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was mentioning, and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he explained in that hadith that it's used by the disbelievers for in this world. Okay, those gold and silver dishes or awani or dishes or plates or whatever, they're used by kuffar in this world. Okay, it's for them in this dunya. And in the akhirah, obviously, they do not have that. Taban. And in the akhirah, the Muslims, they have such things. However, the four madhahib, they explain this by saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wa sallam, he specifically mentioned eating and drinking. Why?
That's what the kuffar do.
Because, not necessarily what the kuffar do, because that was what they were, their most popular usages were for those things at the time. For eating and drinking, okay? But, obviously, though it's not limited to just eating and drinking. So, that being said, using them for wudu and other purposes would have the same ruling. So, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah related that Al-Qurtubi rahimahullah, he said that just like Rasulullah deterred from using vessels for eating and drinking, using them for similar means is also haram as well. Okay? And that would also apply in this day and age to someone that has, I don't think it's, it doesn't really happen too much here, maybe in the Gulf countries where people, they're very extravagant and waste money. They have built sinks and faucets and whatnot of gold and silver. Okay, so if you were ever to visit someone, as most likely now you guys have it in your homes, you visit someone and you see his tap is made of pure gold or silver, then it would be prohibited, it's haram to make wudu from that, okay? And that would be making a qiyas from the classical issue to common day. Okay. So, next question. Let's say somebody, they made, they have this gold vessel, a gold container, 24 karat, and they have some water in there, they made wudu. Is there wudu sahih? No?
You get sin,
You get sin, but it's not sahih, but it's sahih? No. So this is the correct opinion, is that it is muharram to use it, but the wudu itself would still be valid. Okay? Why? Why is that the case? Just before I give you why it's the case, Nawawi and others, they said that there's an ijma' on this issue, that the wudu would be valid. But they say that the person gets sin. Why is that the case? Can you explain further?
Because it doesn't affect the water, like the qualities of the water. So the water is pure.
The water is pure, which is a condition of the wudu. Okay? Is it a condition of the wudu that the water has to come from a non-gold or silver container?
No.
No. But there's a separate narration which makes that haram. Okay, there's a separate narration which would make that haram, but it does not make it the wudu invalid because it's not a condition to begin with, okay? So, with that we'll conclude water. Moving forward to the next type of substance used for tahara, which we said was soil or earth. So, we use soil in two circumstances, or earth for tahara we use in two circumstances. Number one, in the absence of water, as previously mentioned. Number two, we would use it when using the water will cause harm or injury. Okay? So what is this called? The process of using soil for tahara, what is that called? Tayammum. It's called tayammum. Tayammum, some people they have an idea that tayammum is only for people that are traveling in a desert somewhere on foot with no water. That's far from reality. Okay, tayammum actually has many practical uses in our modern day and age as well. So it's very important to learn ahkam of tayammum because most likely at one point or another in your life you will definitely need this knowledge. Okay? So tayammum, obviously it's clear, we don't have to go into too much explanation. When there's no water available and you have to make tahara for salah, then without a doubt, upon you is tayammum, to use the earth. Very clear. Okay? Next issue. How about when there is water available, but you have to, or by using the water, is going to affect you, or harm you, or injure you, or cause some type of illness. Okay? This is what we want to look at now. So tayammum is referred to as the dry ritual purification or the dry ablution, and like we said, it's when you replace using water with soil, and that's mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 6, which is what? What's the verse, Afi? What's the verse? That's one of the first. No. فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا فَامْسَحُوا بِوُجُوهِكُمْ وَأَيْدِيكُمْ مِنْهُ. Let's put some words together as part of that ayah, and inshallah khair. When you cannot find water, perform tayammum with clean earth by rubbing your face and your hands. So that's from Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 6. And there's many hadith about this. There's a hadith in Sahih Muslim, the translation of it is that we have been made superior to mankind in 3 respects. Our ranks are formed like those of the Malaika, the angels. All of the earth has been appointed as a masjid for us. We can pray in every part of the earth, except a few that have exception, of course, from other narrations. And our earth has been appointed for us as a means of cleansing when we do not find water. So this also is a dalil to show the permissibility of tayammum. So there are many other ahadith, different narrations with similar wording and different meanings pertaining to the matter of tayammum. And tayammum was legislated in a very beautiful qissa that took place amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Excuse me. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was on a journey, on a travel with some of the Sahaba, amongst them his wife, our mother Aisha radiallahu anha. They reached an area, they were in a place called Al-Baydad, and Aisha radiallahu anha, she lost her necklace. And then Rasulullah and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they stayed back to look for that necklace. And this area, al-Bayda, is an area where there's no water. Okay, and the Sahaba had very limited water with them. So they're in an area with no water, they have very limited water, and they are staying behind to look for this necklace of Aisha, and as a result they were running out of water. So some of the Sahaba, because they're in a very tight situation, they began to want to point the finger of blame. But without a doubt, they never went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or his wife Aisha or mother radiallahu anha. Rather, who did they go to?
The one who brought the water?
No. They go to the father of Aisha, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, to blame him because, your daughter caused this delay because she lost her necklace, and now, we're stranded here, we're trying to look for it, we're losing water, so on and so forth. But then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he actually admonished Aisha radiallahu anha. And on the following morning, when they woke up, there was no water. So they needed a solution for their tahara. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this circumstance, He revealed the ahkam, or the ruling of tayammum. And then they ended up finding the necklace of Aisha radiallahu anha under the camel that she was riding. So one of the Sahaba, he told Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, said, "This is not the first blessing of yours, O family of Abu Bakr." And what he means by that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed the Ummah with a way out, or an easy solution, through this incident that took place surrounding Aisha radiallahu anha, and that is the daughter of Abu Bakr. So it looked on face value like it's going to be a big problem. They're running out of water, they're going to run into some issues. But then it ended up being a great blessing and lots of ease for this whole ummah. Because now this tayammum, the dry wudu or the dry ablution, is a very easy way out in times of need until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Okay? Anyhow, so we're going to speak about tayammum a little bit now. So what type of illness, because we said that there's two causes, right, which would allow for tayammum to take place. Number one being the absence of water. Number two, if it will cause some type of bodily harm or illness or injury. So now we want to classify what type of illness gives one the right or qualifies one to be allowed to do tayammum. What kind of illness? Okay? Now,
I was trying to look for a hadith to see if it's authentic, but I heard a hadith where there was a man with head injury, and the people, they didn't have Rasulullah with them, so they asked each other, the people that were with him, and they said, no, you have to do wudu or a ghusl or something. So when he did it, I guess it impacted his injury and he died. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, why didn't you ask him of knowledge? It would have been enough for him to do tayammum. But have you heard of that hadith? I can't.
Yes, so that I have heard of that hadith, and that hadith, it is accepted by some of the ulama. The more correct opinion though is that it's hadith da'if. Okay, but nevertheless, the meaning behind it is definitely or the ruling, it would be definitely applicable, but the hadith itself is da'if. Okay, so from a fiqh standpoint, there's 3 levels of illnesses. Okay, 2 of them, it's muttafaq alayh, regarding the hukm of tayammum in that regard, and one of them there's khilaf. So the first one is the level of the illness that is extreme, okay? And this is where one is ill to a point where they fear death, or the loss of a limb, or their part of their body or limb might be severed or something if they use water, or that they'll lose functionality or the ability of the body part if water is used. So maybe they might go blind, they might lose their hearing, their speaking might be impeded, or something to that effect, or they may get an infection in their hand, so on and so forth, okay? Loss of the hand with an infection. They might lose their hand because it'll be infected, so they're going to have to amputate it. Okay, so matters like this, then there's ijma' amongst the Sahaba, there's ijma' amongst the fuqaha, there's ijma' amongst the fuqaha that a person can do tayammum in this case. And that's from the verse, Surah An-Nisa, وَإِن كُنْتُم مَرْضَى, if you're ill. So, until the end of the verse, okay? So this specifies an illness, and there's no clear illness worthy of tayammum more than this, because the person, they're going to have direct injury or death, or something very severe will take place. Alright? And there's also additional dalil from the Quran to support this as well, that the ulama mentioned, and that's verses that deter one from harming themselves, or verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making difficult matters easy. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, and do not throw yourselves into destruction. 195 of Surah Al-Baqarah. And in Surah Al-Hajj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not laid upon you in the religion any hardship. Surah Al-Hajj, verse number 78. And in Surah Al-Nisa, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, do not kill yourselves, verse number 29. And in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 6, وَمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيَجْعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ حَرَجٍ, and Allah does not want to place upon you difficulty. Ma'idah, verse number 6. And there's other ahadith and athar and other rationales that would also support this, but it's already extremely clear the permissibility of tayammum for such a reason. Okay, the second type of illness, how long are we at, brothers? Or just,
When does it end?
42 minutes.
42, okay, we'll conclude shortly, inshallah. I don't want to go for too long. So, the second type of illness is a small minor illness, and there's also agreement upon this. There's also ijma' amongst the scholars that such an illness where one doesn't fear the loss of a limb or the loss of its ability to function, okay, and it's an illness where the usage of water doesn't slow the cure or make it worse. Okay, for example, if somebody has a toothache or a headache or a fever, or it's a little bit cold, so they're going to feel a little bit discomfort. Okay? This, by ijma', by consensus, you are not allowed to do tayammum due to this. Okay? You have to suck it up and use water for wudu, even if there's going to be slight discomfort. Okay? This is not enough to be permissible to do tayammum. And that's because the person is not really going to be harmed by using the water. Okay? Is not ill enough in this regard to be diverted from using water for tahara to using soil for tayammum. Okay? It is not necessary in such a situation. And also some of the scholars, they say that there's a hadith that's sahih in Bukhari and Muslim, al-huma min fahihi jahannam fabirduha bilma. Fever is from the heat of Jahannam, and he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so cool it with water. So obviously if somebody has fever and Rasulullah is saying to cool it with water, then it's obviously very straightforward that you would not be alleviated of using water for tahara, because it's telling you to cool it with water to begin with. Okay? And scholars also say for such an illness or level of illness, there's no real necessity for abstaining from water. Okay? Now we go to the third type of illness. And the third type of illness is the one that's mukhtalif fi, the one that there's dispute amongst the scholars regarding this, whether it's permissible or not to make tayammum. And that's the one that lies, the type of illness that lies in the middle between these two extremes. Okay? This is when one fears water will most likely delay his recovery from the illness, or increase the injury or the illness. Okay, so this category, one, he fears that using the water, it will worsen his case. It will make his injury or his illness worse. Or it will delay recovery. Okay, in this example, or for example, maybe using the water, someone will be defaced. It's going to cause some type of rash, something of that nature, okay? So the ulama have khilaf in this regard, and they divide into two opinions. The first is the opinion of the Hanafi and the Maliki madhab, and then the correct opinion, wallahu a'lam, would be the one of the Shafi'i madhab and one of the two opinions amongst the Hanbali madhab. And we're going to get to them here. So they said an illness in which water is most likely to cause harm, as in this scenario, it may increase the illness or prolong the recovery. Then they said that this is encompassed in the verse, وَإِن كُنتُم مَرْضَىٰ. So this constitutes one being ill. So they can make tayammum. And the second opinion, that one cannot do tayammum in such conditions, stated here. So according to them, the only tayammum that one can do is in the first one. So the ulama, they said that, they say in this case you cannot do it. They say that the only circumstance in which you can make tayammum is if your situation is severe as the first example we gave. It's going to cause death, you're going to lose a limb, going to cause some severe bodily harm. That's the only situation in which you can do tayammum. So that's their opinion. And so they say pretty much it's a matter of life and death or something very severe. And this is one of the opinions. We said the Shafi'iyya had two opinions, and this is one of them. And this is one of the two opinions within the Hanbali madhab. So you see this mas'ala, both the Hanbali and Shafi'i madhab have two different opinions on the same mas'ala. Okay? And they said that this illness that we're talking about, something that may cause harm or delay recovery, cause further injury, they compared it to being like a very simple illness, like a headache or a toothache or something of that regard. And they said that unless one fears loss of life or something extreme, then he cannot do tayammum. And the reason for the dispute amongst the scholars about whether they can do tayammum or not is what level of fear permits one to do the tayammum. So the correct opinion is that it is permissible to do tayammum if using the water will prolong the illness or make it worse or more painful. Okay, this is the correct opinion. That it is allowed to do tayammum if using the water will cause you harm or injury, or it'll prolong your injury or your illness, or it will delay recovery. Okay? Or it'll make your situation worse. So that's sufficient, and this is the correct opinion, that is sufficient for one to make tayammum. Okay? And the verses that we mentioned prior to, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanting to make things easier on one, apply here, and not to harm oneself. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never made any haraj or hardship upon the deen. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Don't kill yourselves. وَمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيَجْعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. Allah does not want to place a difficulty upon you. So these nusus or these ayat are very, very clear, and they explain pretty strongly that one who fears prolonged injury or a more severe case or delayed recovery, okay, would be allowed to make tayammum. Okay. Another mas'ala here I want to ask you, brothers. Okay? Let's say one is at home sick. They're on their bed at home sick. And their bathroom is a few feet away. But due to how ill they are, they cannot get up and reach their bathroom to make wudu. Are they allowed to make tahara in that case? With tayammum, afwan? Are they allowed to make tayammum in that case? Why? Some good dalil.
It depends on how unable is he. Is it unable because of discomfort, or is it just, well, even then, I guess if it makes it painful, then yeah, you can use tayammum.
The person, they have water accessible to them, a few meters away, a few feet away. Maybe the sink's right in front of them. But due to their case, they cannot reach it. For example, they're immobile, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, their legs don't move. They cannot get themselves there, there's nobody around to help. Are they allowed to make tayammum?
Yes.
Where did they get the sun?
Nah.
Where did they get the sun?
That's a different mas'ala. We'll leave that on the side for now. Okay? Leave that on the side for now. We're going to break it down. Where would he get the earth from? Okay? We'll leave that on the side for now, inshallah. Just for the theory's sake, and for the benefit. So, there is ijma' amongst the ulama that it is permissible for such a person to make tayammum. Okay, because they fall into the same category as someone who does not have access to water. Sure, for them, technically the water is physically present, but they don't have access to it. If they cannot physically reach it, then they don't have access to it. Okay? So in that case, somebody there on the hospital bed, there's nobody around to assist them, and it's time for salah. They cannot reach the sink that's maybe across the room from them, due to how bad their condition is, then they're allowed to make tayammum. Okay? And the ulama equated it to somebody being at the top of a well, but they have no bucket to lower into the well. Okay, how are they going to reach that water down there? The same type of example. Okay?
What about if you don't have access to water or earth? Are you exempt from doing wudu? If you're going to make
If someone has, in theory, they don't have any access to water or earth, so they have no substance they can make wudu or even tayammum with, then they pray on their hala that they're upon. The salah never falls off the person. So this condition would then fall off of their shoulders, but they would still have to addi or perform the salat. Okay. Another thing, inshallah, I believe, let me just check here. Yeah, we'll conclude with this last point here, okay? So, who makes the decision whether or not using water will harm you or cause further injury or delay recovery, so on and so forth? Who makes that decision? You're gonna feel a little bit ta'ban, you'll feel, you know what, I think water is gonna make this worse, khalas, I'll make tayammum. So, theoretically speaking, the best case scenario is that a reliable Muslim doctor who knows your medical condition, they will be the best one to tell you whether or not using water will affect your case, make it worse, delay recovery, so on. Okay? Or if they're not Muslim, but usually someone who studied medicine, they kind of will be able to give you a medical or scientific answer whether or not water will worsen your case or whatnot. Let's say there's no medical doctor in sight and you have an injury. Are you allowed to judge your own condition?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay? The Hanafiya, Malikiya, and Hanabila, and some Shafi'i, they say yes. Okay? So the majority of the madhab, they say that yes, if you're in this condition, you have no one that can really give you guidance or direction, then you can make your best ijtihad in this regard. Okay? Some of the Shafi'i, they say no, you cannot judge your own condition. But obviously the first opinion is the most correct because it coincides with the overall principles of the Sharia, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want somebody to put themselves in harm's way in such a case. It's pretty straightforward there.
The ones that say no, what do they say you should do?
They say that you need somebody who has the knowledge that will tell you.
What ones you just do?
Too bad. Okay, so with that, inshallah, I don't want to go for too long. I think we took longer than I wanted to anyhow. So with that, inshallah, we'll conclude. Does anybody have any questions about what we took today? No? جزاكم الله خيرا. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.